A new phase of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. That is what House Oversight Committee Democrats say they are launching following a hearing this week with Epstein survivors and their families in Palm Beach, Florida, not far from Epstein's former home where he sexually abused girls.
You guys have to figure out how to make justice, not me. And you can't give me justice. You keep on saying this is the worst case in the United States, but it's not. It's the worst case in the world. This never happened to me in other places, and I traveled as a model all over the world.
Jeffrey Epstein destroyed so many of our lives, and Ghislaine Maxwell helped him do it.
I was trafficked to Jeffrey. I had two recruiters. One was a late teen, and the other was only 15 years old, just trying to escape her own abuse.
Joining me now, Virginia Congressman Suhas Subramaniam. He serves on the Oversight, Science, and Ethics Committees. Look, I'll be candid. I watched you along with me as those women were testifying. We're shaking our head, almost in disbelief that we're dealing with this. But you have this hearing, which is the first time some of these survivors, particularly that first one, Rosa, have come forward. What new did you learn from their testimony?
One, for me personally, I think many of the other committee members, it reminded us of why this investigation is so important. One, because Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, really just ruined the lives of so many girls in Palm Beach and across the world. And Palm Beach is where it started, which is why we had that hearing. But the damage that it did, and second, how the government, whether it's law enforcement or the justice system, like over and over again, they disappointed and undermined these survivors when they tried to share their stories, when they tried to name names. They were almost on the side of perpetrators at times. And so it reminded us why we're doing this investigation, why people don't trust government, and why we need to continue pushing forward.
Ranking Member Robert Garcia released a new report claiming the non-prosecution agreement negotiated by former Florida U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, that's what allowed Epstein to, quote, continue and expand his trafficking operation. So what is in this report that the public hasn't seen before?
We interviewed Alex Acosta as well, and he blamed everyone else but himself. But the reality is there's people like Alex Acosta who made Jeffrey Epstein, gave him the ability to continue his crimes. And we're interviewing other people, too, who are involved in Epstein's enterprises or who are in the Epstein files. And we're going to continue this investigation. The Republicans have shut down the Oversight Committee. They won't let us have official hearings anymore because they're afraid we'll try to subpoena more Epstein-related witnesses. And they're also trying to shut down the investigation altogether, saying that there's nothing to see here. And so is the DOJ as well. So, we are trying to shine light on everything that is out there and put out reports to the people about what we've heard from the witnesses.
Yeah, clearly this is not deterring Democrats because that report is the first of many that Oversight Democrats say they will release as part of a new phase in the Epstein investigation. So what can we expect in this new phase, new stage of the probe?
Well, we're talking to people who are very close with Jeffrey Epstein. And so we're also talking to the prison guard who was looking after Epstein when he committed suicide. Some people have questions about whether that was a suicide or how he was able to commit suicide under those circumstances, given that he was under essentially a suicide watch. And then we have people like Bill Gates coming in to answer questions that the American people have on why they were involved, how they were involved too. And so we are going to continue to push for answers, and we're going to continue to push for the release of the 2.5 million files, many of whom the survivors have brought up themselves as being problematic. They were looking for files themselves with their own statements. And so we're going to keep pushing forward in this investigation, and we're not going to wait until we're in the majority in Congress to get some answers.
Well, in fact, Oversight Republicans have scheduled this Thursday interview coming up with Sarah Kellen, who was a top assistant to Epstein and who claims he abused her. Now, Kellen was one of 4 women named as possible co-conspirators in that 2007 Florida agreement, granting all of them immunity. The Epstein files show Manhattan prosecutors discussed bringing a witness tampering charge against Kellen. And she was also accused in numerous civil lawsuits of scheduling Epstein massages with young girls. So now the committee wrestles with whether women like her were victims of Epstein, whether they're co-conspirators or both. How will the committee navigate this when questioning her?
Well, one thing that the survivors brought up at our hearing in Palm Beach is that, many of them were forced to try to recruit other women too, and so it put them in a very difficult position. And then too, they brought up how their identity was revealed in the Epstein files, as well as personal information about them too. Sarah Kellen comes up a lot. She was essentially a gatekeeper for Epstein. She was paramount in making him available to be able to do these heinous crimes. She knew all about his crimes. So at the very least, we'd love to know what Sarah Kellen knows. We'd love to know if Sarah Kellen can explain to us how Jeffrey Epstein was able to get away with these crimes. And I know it's a very difficult situation, so I want to hear how she was victimized too. But certainly we want to protect all the survivors, but Sarah Kellen was very unique in that she was essentially an executive assistant, a scheduler, and an operator for a lot of Jeffrey Epstein's activities.
So listening to that, are you leaning more towards a co-conspirator for her, for this one person?
From what I've seen in the files, she's more co-conspirator to me than anything else because of how involved she was. But to me, I want to hear what she knows. In the end, I would like to solve the bigger problem, which is how Jeffrey Epstein was able to get away with these crimes, why people are still covering up for the people involved with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, why a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell is even being discussed publicly, given what a monster she has been. And so Sarah Kellen may have some key answers that will help us in this investigation.
Okay. Congressman Suhas Subramaniam, it's good to see you again, sir. Thank you so much.